we have it. We have our first quarter-finalists confirmed at the 2018 World Cup. Uruguay will take on France on the 6th of July in Nizhny Novgorod. So, disappointment for Portugal, the European champions. They bow out of the World Cup in the round of 16. And, well, our panel just slightly favoured Uruguay before kick-off, and so it transpired. And what would you credit their victory to, Damien?
Everything we said before the game, Peter. They're difficult to beat, they're organised, they're compact bodies on the line, and that dash of quality that they have up front. It's as we expected. Portugal, on the other hand, they just didn't have enough to break them down. They are the team that won 2016. They weren't a great watch then. They weren't a great watching at the Confederations Cup last year, albeit they came third. But yeah, listen, Ronaldo cut a frustrated figure there in the end. He's shooting from distance, and he never really created that, and you know, any great chances. And you have to hand it to Uruguay. Really, they weren't really a team I looked at before the tournament. I remember Ronnie Whelan on the launch day for RTE.
Right, yeah.
He mentioned them as a dark horse to go far in the tournament. When I heard him say it, to be honest, I thought he'd had a heavy night the night before, because I couldn't see it. But fair play to Ronnie. He saw that one coming, but I didn't.
Kevin, I suppose it goes to prove that from Portugal's point of view, if they can't find a way through for Ronaldo, they have very little else to offer, and that's the reality of it.
Yeah, they tried charisma off the bench. I think the most impressive thing for us, or for me anyway, is we're not surprised Uruguay are in the quarterfinals.
Yeah,
you know, it's not a surprising thing. They've only 3.5 million people in their country, and they're in the quarterfinals of the World Cup again. You know, we should be going out to Uruguay or to Montevideo, never mind England or whatever, or Holland or wherever we're studying. We should be going out there and having a look at what they're doing or what they're drinking in the water, because they are just producing player after player, and you know, they're just to get to a quarter-final again, and it's expected every year with 3.5 million people is some achievement.
Yeah, and there's also a great resilience and character within that squad as well. Although I know you as a panel have a couple of issues with Luis Suarez, which we'll talk about later on. But overall, I mean, they look like a fairly complete team, don't they, Keith?
Well, they're warriors. In the second half, you'd have to say that Santos changed it at half-time. He had to. He gave them a little bit more width by putting Bernardo Silva in a more central position, caused them problems. It wasn't a direct consequence of how they got back on level terms. It came from a set piece, so Uruguay would be disappointed with that. But in the second half, they didn't have to be warrior-like for that much of the half, because Portugal were that disappointing. They really were. And what you would say about Uruguay is you can control a squad of players, a team, to be very good out of possession. I think that's an absolute minimum as a coach, as a manager. And they do that nearly every single game. The vast majority of players, and you've already alluded to it, barring Suarez, the only time I'm going to give him a little bit tonight is if he's carrying a knock. But otherwise, they were carrying him.
Well, the knockout phase has started extremely promisingly, and as I said, 2 teams through today, and unfortunately for Portugal and Argentina, they bow out, which also means, of course, we lose the 2 greatest players on the planet. Ronaldo and Messi are gone from the tournament. Well, this was the goal that decided it in Sochi this evening, scored by Edinson Cavani, and despite the fact that he went off after 70 minutes, he was still awarded the man of the match there this evening. A total all-round performance by him, and 2 hugely important goals to send Uruguay through to the quarter-finals of the World Cup. And I'm sure, Kevin, because, I mean, you openly admitted you've been a huge fan of his for quite some time, but to see his tournament really sort of gather momentum and come up with the goods, satisfying from your point of view, because he's the type of striker that you always like to be.
Definitely. I've looked at him for a long time. You know, I compared him to Marco van Basten the first day. It's taken a few games to get going. I didn't want to talk about him actually, Peter, afterwards. It was getting a bit embarrassing, but
not really. No.
He was, you know, just outstanding. You know, he was. We were looking at it. He ran twice. Damien looked up the stat, twice as much as Suarez in that game, or close to it. It was just frightening in the first half, especially the amount of work he went through.
He does sacrifice his game, though, doesn't he? We've seen him do it at PSG before, when he had to play on the left-hand side for a couple of years until he got more central. So he's a selfless player, and he certainly does it for his country. So
he covered a lot of ground, but his strike partner, who I would have envisaged being a slightly different type of striker and maybe not covering the way Cavani does. Why were you guys so critical of Luis Suarez?
I'm not sure if he's carrying a knock, Peter, and that's the only slack I'm going to cut him. If it comes out he's carrying a knock, then I'll hold my hands up. But there was one instance that Cavani has ran from a midfield position where he dropped into for much of the game to help his midfield out, help the team out. He's closed down the centre half, he's followed on, then he's closed down Patricio. As that's happened, Patricio's played it to the right side of centre half, and Suarez has just watched this happen.
Yeah.
It was a disgrace, absolute disgrace. And his running stats, I'm sure Kevin's already alluded to.
So do you think he shirked some of his responsibility to the team tonight? I mean, you very rarely see Suarez coming back over the halfway line, no matter who he's playing for. He doesn't do it much for Barcelona.
We highlighted, no, but he got his move to Barcelona off the back of his type of performances at Liverpool. It was all action, it was closing down. OK, he's that little bit older now, 31. You have to taper your game accordingly. But we highlighted Tabarez, how good he is at getting players to buy into this.
Yeah.
He hasn't tonight. I can only assume that he's been carrying a knock. He certainly hasn't looked sharp in this tournament.
Damien, what did you think of Suarez's performance?
Yeah, I totally agree. The stats, what was it? Cavani played 70 minutes, I think, and ran 8... Listen, you can read too much into stats before we go any further, but he ran 8.6k, whereas Suarez finishes the game, he just does 7.5. But listen, at the same time, yeah, he gets an assist. But that's the Suarez. Listen, he's world class. I don't want to be knocking the lads. I don't think he's carrying a knock. I just think that's the player he's been for the past year, 18 months. I think Cavani, in a way, plays second fiddle to him. Someone has to do the dirty work. Like, he doesn't even have the 9 shirt. Cavani has 21. Maybe he's always worn it.
You talked about him not being fit, or he was looking to.
Yeah, he was
work with the fitness
he's looking to work with the fitness coach. You know, the first week in the World Cup, which is mad stuff.
Yeah,
it only comes around every 4 years. So to be not at the top of I won't say your game, your fitness. You know, it's inexcusable, but there's still a hell of a partnership. You look at the first goal, for instance, but that's just the player I've seen at Barca, just starting to really shirk maybe that bit of workload. Like, Cavani's running off the ball, defensive duties tonight was outrageous. And that's probably why he pulled up with his calf on 70 minutes.
Yeah, but I suppose if one striker's having an off night, it's good that the other striker's bang on form. And I suppose it worked the other way around in the first 2 matches, whereas Cavani was a little bit off form and Suarez was kind of carrying their threat.
Yeah, certainly. And listen, the goal, Cavani's goal, that lucky one against Russia with a minute to go, has really kick-started him. But sometimes just sport rewards hard work, and that man hasn't stopped running for 4 games, and that's your rewards. He's gone from Kev hammering him for the first 2 weeks of the show,
hammered him.
to now he's 3 goals in and the top man.
Yeah. No, I don't think he hammered him, in fairness, but one player he did hammer was Pepe, and possibly deservedly so. He's not the most popular player in world football, but he got Portugal back into it with a very good finish. But was there a defensive lapse here as far as Uruguay was concerned?
There was actually a quick corner, and Uruguay for once were caught hopping. Pepe arrives later into the box and they just haven't picked him up. I think it was Godin was meant to be picking him up, or Jimenez was meant to be picking him up. He has him here, he's fine, you think everything's good, and he just goes off the back from him. It's nothing fantastic movement. He's just drifted, and for once Jimenez is just switched off. Godin tries to rescue it, but he's trying to mark Ronaldo as well, and they just can't match his jump. It was a very good header when it came to him, but it was too easy. He's got 2 or 3 yards of space there, when all night long Uruguay shut down that space. There was nothing, and for a set piece to be disappointed with that. But
I think you have to say as well, like, I think over 50% of goals has come from set pieces. Uruguay haven't done their work there at all, which is bitterly disappointing. That's the exact same set piece that Portugal scored against Morocco. Short corner, little touch, and a whip in, an outswinger. So very disappointed from their point of view.
Yeah, and we thought that Portugal would take encouragement from that, because they started, Keith, the second half very well. Then they got the goal, albeit from a set piece, but they had momentum then. But Uruguay seemed to be able to turn it on again, and then Cavani got the second.
Well, it shows the character that Uruguay possess, but also what they've got at the top end of the pitch. This is Paki Bonachet giving it his absolute best. Muslera plays it forward, and we've highlighted Bentancur because the top of the programme are playing a dime, playing in a more advanced area. He's the one up in support. It's an ugly goal, but defensively the setup from Portugal, far from convincing. The finish is outstanding. But myself and Kevin were off our seats straight away as he was about to hit it, because you knew it was going to hit the back of the net. He was in that type of form. Damien's mentioned you work hard, you get your rewards, and he's certainly got that tonight. It's just so unfortunate for him that he's come off with a knock, and I hope he's okay for the game against France.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a moment. But first of all, the Uruguayan defence, we had plenty of chat about it before the game kicked off, Damien, and again, it proved very effective today, didn't it?
Yeah, it's same old faces. They matched that, and that was thrown at them. Godin and Jimenez, they'll obviously be disappointed with the goal, Jimenez especially. But Godin, just the positions, just marking space, width of the goal, and always there to clear. Reads it again here, dropping, knows where the danger is. And, you know, they'd be lost without him. Just like up top, they'd be lost without Suarez and Cavani. So underrated, maybe because he's not a proper, you know, footballer, getting your team started. But as for defending, he's absolutely world class.
This is the shape of the team, more generic in terms of the way they set up, more so in the second half, a little bit deeper, the bodies they have back. And it's twofold, because I was so disappointed in what Portugal threw at them in the second half. They didn't create too many clear-cut opportunities, but they're such a well-drilled outfit that have a never-say-die attitude. They had mobility in the midfield areas. In the first half, they changed that with Rodriguez and Sanchez coming on Uruguay in the second half to give that little bit more experience. Ronaldo was coming into deeper, wider areas to try and get involved. Safety in numbers. Time and time again, they frustrated them. Once they got into these areas, for me, they never really looked like scoring. And they'll be disappointed in the manner that they did concede, because Tabarez sets them up a lot better than that. So I'm sure that's something they'll be ironing out.
Yeah, possibly a lesson learned. From what about Portugal, Damien? I mean, why do they find it so difficult to break down that Uruguayan defence? I mean, considering, they have, you know, a talisman in Ronaldo. Maybe is he a distraction sometimes?
We can't pick and choose the times he's a distraction, you know. He probably won you the Euros, he's won Champions League, so no, you need him. But like, if you look through the team, yeah, there's Ronaldo, but who else is really going to create maybe or get you started? They huffed and puffed all night and they just ran out of ideas for me. Like Keith said, Uruguay defended in numbers, but, you know, no great quality in the crosses. This is the one time it's more a mistake than great quality from Portugal. It's the keeper, Patricio, dropping the ball. You'll obviously be disappointed with that, but again, bodies across, albeit a poor finish. Quaresma here, not a bad ball, but again, just shots from distance, and this was the last 15-20 minutes, and this is what it came down to. I must say, it did coincide with Cavani going off, just that work rate, it dropped. Rodriguez coming on, he just doesn't give you the same, you know, output. But again, shots from distance. Carvalho, listen, wonderful defensive midfielder, but here even the tempo, look how slow they're moving it. Shot from distance, never going to threaten. So, like Keith said, yeah, a lot of it in Portugal's defending half, but never looked like scoring. Or sorry, Uruguay's defending half.
As far as Uruguay are concerned, are they? Do we see them growing into the tournament, Kevin? Which is normally a good sign if that's the case. A team evolving as the tournament goes on. Yeah,
you know, we shouldn't be surprised. I said it before. We spoke about it in the last World Cup when we were talking about them being slow starting in the group stages and not playing well. The coach came out and said, you know, this is the way we go. This is how we play in the World Cup. It was the same the last time and the time before. So, you know, they're starting to fire. We talked about Cavani, how important it was. He got that tap in against Russia. Suarez has got a few goals, so they got their main men scoring goals, and everyone just so organised, so hard working. You know, I don't know, no one's going to want to play him. You know, it's going to be very difficult to beat them. It wouldn't surprise you if they went all the way.
I suppose the only worrying thing from their point of view was the injury picked up by Cavani. I know it's hard to speculate from this distance, Keith, but what do you think was the problem?
Well, he was clearly icing his calf on the bench when he went there. I thought Ronaldo was quite clever here, ushering him off to the nearest point of exit. Clearly in a little bit of distress. And I think the workload was certainly a factor. 4 games in the space of whatever it's been, 10 days. What he went through tonight, the selflessness of his game, and if he's not fit, they won't go past France, in my opinion, because I think he's that important to them.
OK, well, certainly they'll be hoping that he will be OK for that huge quarter-final match, which, as I said, takes place on the 6th. Right.